Hello, everybody, and yeah, welcome to a short pairing session. This is an unscheduled one, a weird one, a fun one. Thanks, Nicolas, for joining this.
Sure, thanks.
So, the very brief introduction about this is when I started to work with DuoChat. That was my first encounter with like proper GraphQL subscriptions in the wild. The learning curve was steep. It was a lot of fun. But there definitely have been some twerks and lessons learned and all of that. So my initial intention about this was, as I keep on seeing these twerks and issues coming back and these things that I review, and the steward chat is getting more host system and all of that. I was like, okay, maybe we need to share these information, and I was considering writing a blog post about that. This is the draft you're currently seeing on my screen. As I'm aware that Nicolas is the mastermind of the DuoChat subscription, GraphQL implementation, and all of that, I scheduled a coffee chat with him, kind of run this draft through them. And I learned that these problems that we're having in here are actually properly not even quite GraphQL subscription, as if they have to be that way. But these are probably rather DuoChat implementation twerks, probably not enough of an issue to be considered a bug, but definitely not the last iteration, to say it like that. So target of this quick call is to go through these problems that we're currently facing again, see what is causing them, and maybe speak about a potential fix. Definitely not fixing them, and have a lot of fun with GraphQL subscriptions in general. What do you think?
Sounds good. We can get started.
Absolutely. So, first problems that we've been seeing overall, but we will definitely focus on the web UI implementation, but that's just used as an example here. I'm having a hard time considering these problems being front end or back end. It's really the in between. Like this is super network layer stuff. So when working with GraphQL subscription, one of the common issues definitely is handling messages that arrive out of order. So this is like the basic chunk problem. We're still in one message being kind of said. Maybe I can why explain it when I can try to demonstrate it in here. So basically, test prompt. This is all about the streaming response, which we're hopefully going to be seeing soon. So yeah, there we go. Chunks are streaming in, and the problem that we're having on the network layer is that these chunks are sorted by a number. Doesn't really make sense to put one word in front of the other. And these ideas we usually mix up. That was something that I just took for granted. It was like, okay, we just gotta take care of it. But I learned that doesn't have to be the way, correct?
And that's correct. We use subscriptions just as a type safe WebSocket connection, right? And usually WebSockets are in order, like you could actually guarantee an order, but with the implementation on the backend, we unfortunately can't. So until this is fixed, we unfortunately need to say it could happen that these chunks get out of order, and get not sent in the order we want to or intend to. And that's what we need to deal with then on the front end and stitch together these chunks to make a sentence out of it, right? To make something that makes sense. And that's why we introduced this chunk ID. And we just rely on like, if these chunks get sent, you might get like the first chunk, then the third chunk, and then the second chunk. And this is the order you get it sent. Usually when you work with subscriptions, you don't care, right? You just want an update. For example, you're on an issue and you want to know like an update from the description title or something got changed. You don't care if you get the title or description changes first usually. But in this
Gotcha.
case, unfortunately, the order matters. So we run into this problem now.
Okay, I see. But the what you just mentioned, like the backend implementation, or the current state of it is the current state of it. Is this a known issue? Do we have an issue for that? Are we tracking this
Yeah,
or?
I need to look up the issue where I researched the whole problem back then, like how we use the subscription and WebSockets for these chunks. And there was, I think, the issue mentioned. We wanted to fix it because I think we wanted to implement real-time editing via a WebSocket back then, and there was an attempt to fix it, but I think we also stopped working on real-time. So there's that. I might be able to find the issue.
Can you quickly help me out with real time? What do you mean in that context?
Real-time editing of the issue description, for example. Like we both, like on Google Logs. This was an idea, and we would have used WebSockets, and we would have needed to fix our WebSocket implementation.
But this is for non-DuoChat related.
Non-DuoChat related, absolutely
Gotcha.
not. But this is like work related to fixing these out of order chunks.
Gotcha. Okay. So what I'm hearing, we would also be fixing this, not necessarily on a like in the backend implementation, not on a DuoChat level, but rather on a service monolith wide implementation. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd be curious for the link, but then also like our team will basically just lean back or whoever's working on this, I don't even know. But sweet, let's follow this on the issue and see what we got there. Sweet. So, awesome. Glad that is off the table. Another problem that we've been commonly running in, probably the biggest and one that I do see chances for us to make a rather short-term progress on. So basically, this kind of occurred when we introduced the cancel button on the GraphQL subscription. User would send a prompt. The cancel button is now new. User would cancel the streaming. That is about it regarding user interaction. The problem that I've been facing when working with this, like my initial gut reaction was really simple, as if we're gonna subscribe to the query, user is gonna be canceling the first prompt, you could say, and then when the next prompt is sent, we're just going to send a second subscription, and then we should be good to go. That was kind of the straightforward implementation plan. Okay, let's do it. When I had this implemented, I was running into the weirdest issue, as basically like there was, you could say, a sanitizing problem on those subscriptions. To make a long story short, the second subscription in the right timing still had answers from the first subscription. This was like the nastiest bug ever. You don't really want to have that. And the workaround in at least the web UI, but I assume rather in all of our code bases now, is to never cancel a subscription, just work with one and then start to filter those messages that we're getting in once they're canceled. So it's basically like a a client-side only solution at once, but also not the cleanest approach to do that. And when I described this problem to Nicolas, I learned a lot about request IDs. Can you help me around that?
Yeah, so let's get started with the problem first that we have with the subscriptions and the mutation. So what we do right now is, and what you usually do on the front end, you send a request, you get a response, right? You can exactly match this request to the response. The problem with the subscriptions and the WebSockets is that you can't know, like, what is this response for? Like you send a mutation somewhere and you at the same time listen on any response. So you need to filter on the front end which request is based on which response. And that's why we introduced this client subscription ID. This is a bit like coming from the idea, like there's also something called client mutation ID, which is actually a thing in GraphQL. And I think it's coming from Relay, where it's very similar. And so what we did is, hey, when you send this mutation on the front end, you also send a client subscription ID. This could be arbitrary, like any number, like we use a UID there. And the backend guarantees that once it streams back the subscription, it always sends this client subscription ID with it. So this way the front end can match the mutation and the request with the response again. And so this is the first thing. How do you match this stuff? And the problem that you are describing right now, what you did is like you sent the request with the client subscription ID, let's say 1, because we can send anything. and we get requests, responses back with the client subscription ID 1. But what you do instead of what you do now is you do not cancel the subscription, but you just send another request with client subscription ID 1. And of course, the backend, since you never unsubscribe from the WebSocket, it's still like processing this request. It now sends you two different, I think it will send you just two responses from the prompt 1 and from the prompt 2 with the client subscription ID 1.
Yes.
Yeah. And the easiest solution would be just to generate a new client subscription ID for the new request and then unsubscribe and resubscribe. Because think about these client subscription ID like you would have on Slack, you have different channels, right? And these subscriptions that we have are just a channel that we listen to. So what we would do is, hey, give me this client subscription ID with, give me this, I create this mutation with the client subscription ID 1 and listen to it on the channel 1. And then I say, okay, I actually don't want to listen to it anymore. I close the request and cancel this request. And now I create another notation, but with client subscription ID 2, and I just listen on this channel.
Gotcha.
And now I get this again.
This kind of sounds like, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but this kind of sounds like the filtering that we're now doing on the client side for the lack of a better idea. This is sort of already basically implemented in the backend, and we should just use it.
Yeah, it's solved. And actually, it is even easier because from a network perspective, you no longer send these requests, these responses to the client because you would unsubscribe. Especially in the front end with how Apollo works, you change this client subscription ID and you would no longer listen to it, so it would unsubscribe and resubscribe to a new one. So you would no longer even receive this network response.
Yeah, so did I hear it correctly? We will basically cut down on a lot of the network nodes.
Yes, when you cancel these like for this canceling, you would no longer receive that anyway because you're not subscribed to it. So
fair point. Yeah. Awesome. So that is a win-win. That is fair to say. With the all of what we just said does make a lot of sense when we are speaking about a cancel prompt. But if I hear you correctly, also in a best state, like let's assume a successful prompt A coming in, answer prompt B, whatnot. Still, both of these prompts in best case should have a unique client subscription ID, right? Like this is not a cancel feature. It's just like every prompt we should.
Yeah, it would just make things easier. And I wanted to describe two more things first, like why we chose this solution. One of the first ideas was, hey, like I not even go to the resource ID, which is another mess. But the first idea was, hey, what if because instead of having a client to define this client subscription ID, what if we would get a random like client mutation ID back when you create a mutation, right? This was one of the first ideas, like, hey, you create a mutation, the backend gives you some ID back that you listen to. Just if someone thinks like, why didn't we do this? It could be that the request was sent out, and before we even subscribe to the channel, responses already come in. So we wanted to prevent a delay between subscribing to the channel, like sending the request and subscribing to the channel. So you already listened to something that you sent out, if that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. So
we never have this race condition.
Gotcha. Yeah, this will make things a lot easier and will save us from a lot of workarounds. Okay, cool. So definitely first hard fact and to do. I'll open an issue about refactoring the DuoChat implementation to use unique client-side subscription on every prompt. Like this is, as you mentioned, backend is already there. This is a client.
Absolutely.
For now. Amazing. Yeah.
If I may ask, say one more thing. So this client subscription ID, we also have this thing. It's called AI action. And it's basically only here for chat. Chat is the only thing that needs it. So we want to introduce it for every feature, but chat is really the only thing. Think about the client subscription ID, when you think about chat, as also part of like you are in multiple tabs, for example, you have multiple tabs open. And if with a chat, like you send on the first tab, like you send your request, and then the second tab, you actually want to see that request and response again. Okay, so that's why we need AI action for, because the second tab doesn't know about this client subscription ID that you created in the first tab. So the backend does the following. So it sends the streaming response on the client subscription ID. With every chunk, it just sends it. And then the very end, when the whole prompt gives you back a response with the whole answer, it sends again the whole message again on AI action being chat. And this is the thing that all tabs can listen to all the time. So all tabs always listen to all messages for this AI action chat. And in addition to that, each tab that sends a request out listens to the client subscription ID of its own, like for this request. That way we sync all the tabs with the right messages.
And yeah, and we sync those messages only receiving, right? Like
only
sending,
for receiving, yeah.
Yeah, sending out is just like that. That is a one tab only problem.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, cool. And if I would send another prompt out in another tab, then I would get a new, or I would create a new client subscription ID.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I wonder how we currently do it, but honestly, syncing between tabs and windows and so is a problem, and that might.
It's already working. Like we always have two subscriptions on every tab. One subscription is for all messages, like from other tabs. And one subscription is for my current prompt that I sent on this current tab. So you see the AI completion response stream. This is the first one.
The streaming part.
This is actually streaming part. And then there's like the AI completion response, which is only listening on the AI action chat for the current user. And yeah.
I see too many AI completion response. This one from this streaming query.
This is just the mutation. Like the subscription is the same. That's why you see this data. The data that you receive is the same. One is just with chunks. The other one is the complete response. And AI completion response stream, it's like line 95 4. This is the query, and with the variables of the user ID, the resource ID, which is not necessary actually, and the client subscription ID. And then a few lines above, we see this AI completion response with just the user ID and the AI action. So this is the one for all tabs.
Okay.
And then the second one is for the current one for the streaming.
Amazing. Let me take that segue, because I was actually just about to ask about these two different subscriptions that we're having. I was aware about the one that we have one subscription for the streaming and one for the final message. Honestly, from another perspective, which is maybe another problem to be solved, which is mostly a client-side performance thing, like how we render the markdown, the streaming in, we're rendering markdown like basically plain, and the full response we're then going to be rendering with the GitLab flavored markdown. It's just more features, but a little more costly on the performance side. I have to admit, I haven't been too aware of from this variable change and also the AI action chat. That does make a lot of sense. My question though is, keeping the markdown rendering aside for a second, are those two queries here to stay? Or is that something?
Otherwise, we could not sync between tabs. So it's only for chat. For other features, you usually don't need this.
Gotcha.
But for chat, we need to sync multiple tabs, or even like multiple windows. Like you have VS Code chat, you have your GitLab browser, you have the VS Code IDE. Like if you want to sync all these chats, you need both subscriptions all the time.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I'm also making another note about, I don't think we have docs for these kind of stuff yet. So for the subscription ID, I will try to leave at least a sentence or something in our docs and also for the AI action and why we have 2 queries.
There is, yeah. I think there should be docs somewhere.
Okay, I'll double check.
I will double check, yeah, as well. So there should be docs for this, and so it's this is a very special problem for chat, and that's and we also removed the resource ID. Maybe it's still used for these subscriptions, but we could actually get rid of it because the client subscription ID is unique enough. And then there are other features, and we thought about using only client subscription ID for these other features. There was some argument then made. I need to think why that we always used AI action plus the client subscription ID. I don't remember exactly why, but the idea was, hey, everything should just use AI action and the client subscription ID, and then the AI action would be, for example, summarize issues, and the client subscription ID is some UUID that you would listen to for another feature.
I see. Okay. So resource ID is not here to stay, but that is out of scope for now, I assume.
Resource ID, exactly. And we still double broadcast, I think, on the resource ID and the client subscription ID. This is a cleanup that needs to be made. Resource ID was the thing that we started with and was a mistake. And cleaning it up is unfortunately costly because first it's everywhere in the code, and second, we need to actually have everything on the backend that we stream on both, and we can remove this on the front end. And with 1 or 2 versions later, we can remove it on the backend as well. So,
gotcha. But still, like correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see the resource ID or the chaos around it as our biggest pain point at the moment. Like this is kind of just a value we're sending too much. We're not really interacting with it too much. Like there's no, if I think about the chunks, for example, like we are actively sorting this stuff in the front end. There's like a lot of lines that we work around this. I don't see this happening with the resource.
Yeah, you no longer see this happening, but this was a problem we had last year. So the idea was, okay, hey, we have this resource ID, let's use that. For a resource ID can be anything, like a user, a issue. And in the beginning, we used this as an identifier. So you burn an issue and you use the issue global ID as a resource ID, and you got the chunks from this. And this worked fine until you have another feature on that issue. So let's say summarize comments and generate description, both 2 features on an issue. Both use the resource ID that is like the issue ID. So both, if they are active in a subscription, will just start rendering something. So that's the problem. And that's where the client mutation ID, client subscription ID came into place.
Oh, okay. Now I see. So the resource ID actually had like a, not to say physical representation, but it kind of the value in there was not arbitrary. It is meant to mean something.
It meant to mean something because you're actually using that on the backend to, for example, know what you're interacting with. And I think we still use it somehow. So you're interacting, you're on an issue page. So that's what we wanted to cover in the beginning.
Gotcha.
Hey, everything on this issue page has, for example, notes. It has something that we can use as a context for this chat. That was the idea in the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, amazing, sweet. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I was just skimming through this agenda again, and one problem we did not yet touch, but I do have high hopes that maybe that is mostly resolved by the things we just spoke about. So unsubscribing when subscription is not needed. Well, it kind of reads very straightforward. And I would also argue that unsubscribing is kind of easy, like from a technical perspective. This is basically what we do, what we're going to be doing on the same as we do on the cancel button. I'm just thinking about when do I know when it's safe to unsubscribe? But with the chunk ID, that is resolved, right? I think there is like one kind of last bit or something, which like at some point I think we just stopped to get chunk IDs, if I recall correctly, or something. There is something along those lines.
Yeah. So Yeah,
So
this is the next thing. So you have these two subscriptions, and we listen on both. And what sometimes or actually often happens is you receive chunks, and you in the middle of the response, and you suddenly get the full message. And
yeah.
this could
Oh,
happen. And actually, we would still receive chunks. And what we do is we either unsubscribe already, or we just ignore these chunks and just render the full message.
sorry to interrupt, but this was the famous empty message bug, basically. What you just described was the cause of it. But yeah, go ahead. So that was definitely a problem.
Yeah, we fixed it in September, so I'm not sure why these things pop up all the time.
Okay.
I know this was a very early thing that we had to fix. So this is
Okay.
one way where we need to like every time you know that this request is done, you unsubscribe. Yeah.
No, what I'm thinking about, like this is definitely something that still happens from time to time. So basically to live example, prompt is being sent out. Response starts to stream in, and we are receiving the full message and still getting chunks on the other subscription.
Yeah.
That does happen from time to time.
Yeah.
That is working as expected, isn't it? Do I get this right?
That's expected, yeah. And I mean, we might be able to fix it on the backend. That could be a case if you would know that the actual request is done.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Like now that we are aware of the problem, this is not too big of a thing to solve on the client. So that probably shouldn't be our highest priority. And I think it's a solved problem at the end of the day. I don't worry too much about this. Maybe I'm overseeing something, but also like a clean approach to canceling those requests once the full message is transmitted over the wire, whichever comes first, which is another thing, but that's solved. That sounds very, very straightforward to me, and is something that would go, like I would just include it in here. Let me make a comment about this. And then we should have this sorted as well. Make sure to cancel the subscription, not only on cancel, but also request send successfully.
It could be that with changing the client subscription ID, everything is solved. There could be the thing that I'm sure you get something back once you get the full message. If every time you get the full message or you cancel, you change the client subscription ID that you listen to.
Gotcha.
It should automatically unsubscribe and resubscribe. That's at least what I think it should do. And then you have it out of the box.
Okay, I see. So biggest takeaway from this is never use a client subscription ID twice. Is that kind of the heading?
Yeah. Back then when we started, we haven't had this cancel. So we thought like, it's fine to use the same one, but now it could happen that you have multiple requests at the same time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Amazing. There's a lot in there, and definitely this issue is going to be the main takeaway. For the out of order message, I'll leave this to you. If there is like a bigger issue, that would be great if you can link it. And I would love to have a front end issue that we could kind of relate, so we don't lose track of it. But that's about it. I will also double check the docs. And I think that is what we have. Do you have anything left on your mind? Any quirks?
No other quirks. There are enough, I think.
Yeah, the good, like what I personally really love about this is what we are now speaking of, like or what we're looking forward to is gonna be much simpler. Like the chaos we're currently at, but what is there on the horizon is gonna be a much simpler solution. So that's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think so as well. It will be much easier because I think we have covered everything in the architecture of this client subscription ID. And if we use that right, it should be covered for you as well on the front end.
Gotcha. Amazing, sweet. That definitely does answer my questions. Thanks so much for giving this insight and taking the time. And yeah, have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks so much, Nicolas.